Using Chat GPT again. This time I'm going to be focusing in on items. In the past, we've done NPCs. I think we've done some rollable tables, those sort of things. So I want to kind of show you that you can also be inspired to help you create magic items. In this case, we're going to do something a little bit more complex. I'm going to basically kind of make some kind of magic item that levels up with your character. So it'll basically have 3 or 4 tiers. I think how we're going to handle this is essentially for each tier, we're going to have a different item. So that way, when your player levels up to a certain tier, the GM can just swap the item out and not have to worry about editing the item unless that's how you want to do it. So there's 2 ways you can do it. You can make 3 different instances of the base, or you can make a single one and edit it as you go. I think it's easier just to make 3 copies or 3 or 4 different variations. So it kind of depends on what kind of powers you're going to give it. I think I'm going to make this one semi-sentient. Also, it's going to be magical. It's going to have some silvered properties. There's going to be all kinds of cool stuff that we can add to an item for inspiration for creating an item. So one of the things that I want to do first before I dive into the mechanical part is to actually create the backstory for it. So I want to give it a theme. I give it a setting or a location or some kind of context for that. And I'm going to ask it to write some sort of backstory for it. So I'm thinking about an axe, probably a hand axe, something that's returning or something like that. I don't think of like Thor's axe, but something kind of cool, maybe dwarven. Could be a battle axe, could be a like a polearm like thing. But I'm thinking just a throwing axe or maybe a light hammer or warhammer, something like a dwarven weapon, maybe even a mace. I don't know. So let's talk about these magic items. So these are covered mostly in the we're talking about the DnD5e Rule Set. So these are mostly covered inside of the I guess you could say the magic items are mostly dealt with in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Sorry, it took me forever to say that. But nonetheless, this will be kind of a way to kind of get into using ChatGPT as a creative tool, but also showing how to use the product within Fantasy Grounds. So I have a new clean slate here. This is going to be my text staging area. So whenever I have text or words, I'm going to copy and paste those in here if I need to. And then over here on the right, these are, this is just an items area where I'm going to build the items. So if I go to group in Fantasy Grounds, I always start a new group if I'm going to make my own content. So what's showing right now is everything I have loaded. And the only items that I have loaded right now, if I go into the library and then go into the modules, I only have like the bestiary, the data, and the magic items that come from the SRD. Normally, I don't need anything else. And what reason I have these loaded is for reference. And if I need to see how something's built, like an item, I can make a copy of those and open it up and then take a look at, see how it's structured. So if you get kind of lost when you're creating items, that's a good way to do it. Or you can make a copy of it, rename it, change a few things around, and call it good. But I'm actually going to build something from scratch. But I do want to have some sort of kind of basis so that depending on what it is, I might start with that so I don't have to, begin fresh, all the way, but we'll see. So let's do a magical hand axe. And if you guys have any input or any requests for this, but this is going to be a magic item that's going to level up with the character. So every 5 levels or so, or maybe 6 levels, it's going to add functionality to the magic item. So it's not just going to be a static +1 axe or whatever. It's going to actually have maybe a very kind of small amount of sentience, and it's going to have some unique properties. So it's going to be kind of an artifact almost. Maybe not quite that powerful, but it is going to be kind of cool. So if you guys have any input on that, let me know, and I'll add it into the content. But for right now, let's go back to ChatGPT. I want some inspiration. And just for the sake of brevity and not trying to create a whole world around this item, I'm just going to set it in the Forgotten Realms. But if you're using Pathfinder or a different rule set, or perhaps Kobold Press World, or maybe you're using something from Fraud God Games or whatever, you can theme it however you like. So this is more flavor text, backstory, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to Chat GPT. And what I have loaded here is this is my kind of my experiment thing I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 months. This is a 5e content creator. This is a custom Chat GPT. In order to use this, you have to have a paid account, unfortunately. But these are all the different custom Chat GPTs that I've been working on. Some of these are for social media stuff. Some of them are for like video descriptions, but then others are for creating content in Fantasy Grounds, or even if you're going to make a PDF or something. So that's what all this stuff is here. It also has the ability to create images, so I might be able to generate an image at the end so that we have something to look at. And then all these are unique and customized for this experience. So if I go to the 5e content creator, click on the little drop down arrow and go to edit GPT, it's going to take me to the properties of this customized Chat GPT. And when you click on the configure tab, it has basically this instructions, a description. So this is aids in creating content for Fantasy Grounds VTT, specializing in DnD5e, but I can easily swap that out for Pathfinder or whatever. And then this is the rules. So I wanted to focus on plain text rollable lists, D&D NPC stat blocks, and adventure templates. And so I might put other stuff here, but it says all outputs must be in plain text without HTML, bold text, or code blocks to ensure compatibility with Fantasy Grounds import tools. So that's kind of an important thing, especially for NPCs and tables. The GPT should provide clear, concise, and correctly formatted text suitable for direct use or modification in gaming sessions, avoiding any formatting that could complicate the import process. And what I've done here is I've asked it to, when in doubt, refer to the SRD. So I gave it the direct link to the PDF that's available for free from Wizards of the Coast in this case. But if I was going to do Pathfinder, I would probably refer it to the Archives of Nethys or whatever portal that you use that's public that you're able to pull data from. I'm also asking it to look at the Fantasy Grounds 5th edition rule set for NPCs, for effects, for those sorts of things. So the aesthetics for Fantasy Grounds and some of the formatting rules and stuff will be followed somewhat. Now down here, I've actually given it an example of what I want a stat block to look like. I've given it a PDF of text of how I would like the adventures formatted in most cases. There's the NPC codings format phrasings. So this basically tells it a list of different formattings for text so that if you want to make a special ability, let's say, for an NPC, it has some of that information. And then a rollable list, which is essentially a table. The reason I call it lists because ChatGPT will, if you say table, it's going to make a nice formatted table. I just want the text links because I'm going to actually import that into Fantasy Grounds. And then down here, after you upload this stuff, there's a thing called Code Interpreter. You want to have that on, even though it's not really code. It lets GPT run code. When enabled, your GPT can analyze data, work with files you've uploaded, do math, and more. If you don't have that on, it's not going to pull on these knowledge files. So this is a conversation starter. So I share this link. This is actually something that I'm going to post at the end of the video for this particular content creator. But it has some conversation starters. These aren't necessary, but something like create a rollable list for importing into Fantasy Grounds. So that's like a table. Generate a D&D NPC stat block for Fantasy Grounds. Provide an adventure template for the DnD5e Rule Set. And then help me format this data for Fantasy Grounds. So there's some different conversation starters there. I could add more, but since I mostly use this for myself, and I do share the link, some people might use it, some might not, depending on your favorite rule set. This could be handy when it comes to formatting and knowing what kind of text format is required for using in this particular rule set. So I was going to go back to creating content. So this is the actual content creator. So what I'm going to do is actually take and start a conversation with it where I want it to create a item that levels with the character. But before I get into it, I really want to develop the backstory and the reason it exists and all that stuff. Because without that, all those numbers don't mean a whole lot other than mechanical stuff. So what I'm going to do is ask the Chat GPT AI app to help me create a backstory for a magic item that is of dwarven lineage or heritage, and it'll have some sort of thing themed for the Forgotten Realms. That way it kind of has a lore-friendly background, so you can plug it into the setting. But like again, you can use it in any themed setting you'd like, and if it can, it'll pull information as it generates. So let's do some kind of items. Anybody have any requests? Go ahead and let me know soon, because I'm going to start that process. So I'm going to say create the backstory, history, lore, and current state of a magical weapon. We haven't said what the weapon is, so if you guys want an axe or a sword or something like that, let me know. But I'm getting ready to formulate this. So I'll leave that blank for now. I'll say the setting is the Forgotten Realms. So that way it has kind of an idea of where it's going to be located as far as the background goes. Forgotten. It says Forgotten Realms. That's not going to work. It will kind of, if you misspell a word or two, it's usually pretty good at figuring out what you're trying to what you're meaning. But it's not always perfect, and I think it's better to have a correct spelling and then trying to just have it guess. So the setting is the Forgotten Realms, fantasy setting, comma, DnD5e. I'll say the context is that I am creating an item. I'll say a magic item or a magic weapon that will require a strong story and the ability to level up every 6 levels. So every 6 levels up to level 18, this thing is going to be able to kind of give the wielder different abilities. That's if they can hold on to it long enough. It will also be picky and choosy. Like, this thing may not confer its abilities to just anyone. So someone else picks it up, it's just going to be a normal, +1 axe, or maybe not even that. So create backstory, history, lore, and current state of a magical. We'll do a hand axe since I kind of already had that. Since none of y'all can come up with anything, so hand axe will be more specific. The setting is the Forgotten Realms, Fantasy Grounds, or Fantasy World, and a DnD5e, so it kind of has some context there. Let's see. I'll say research, but I don't want it to take any formal names from the setting. So I don't want it to steal. Let's see, research, but do not use any specific names of NPCs that are canon. So I kind of want to have my own twist on it. It generally doesn't plagiarize, but I don't want it to pull somebody's name from the lore, because it might kind of clash if you're going to play in a setting that uses, the actual setting background. I don't want it to clash with that too much. I don't mind, if it comes from a city or something like that, but I don't want it to pull from like Brunor Battlehammer or something like that. I don't want it to do that. I wanted to create a memorable and unique name for this dwarven artifact. It also has some sentience, so I want to mention that. So when it builds the backstory, it has something to go on, and that way I don't have to reiterate what I want for the backstory as much. So it's kind of important to get your prompt right the first time. When you first start using ChatGPT, you're just going to experiment and keep making changes and stuff. What I found out, though, is if you go into it kind of knowing what you want, sort of, and you have a little bit more to say on your request, it really helps a lot, because then you're not saying, I want a weapon, and then you go, oh, wait, I want it to be a magic weapon. And then you say, oh, I want it to be a returning magic weapon. And you do that, you're kind of wasting the time or the iterations that you can do within an hour. So you're kind of limited to about 40 or 50 of them in so many, in a short amount, like couple hour period. So we try not to waste that anymore. I learned that over the months, that even though I'm paying for this, it is limited, which I think is kind of shitty, but they have to be fair, and they have to make sure that everyone has a chance to use the tool. So they do limit you. I did write to them and say I think it's bullshit. If I'm paying for this, that I shouldn't be limited, or at least my limit should be higher than a standard user. But I don't know what the standards are, or how they measure it, or how they scale it, but I still think it's kind of shitty. But anyway, so create a backstory, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we're doing a weapon that scales, but now we're kind of building the story first, and we're going to build it around the story instead of trying to adapt the story around the item. I think it's better to have the story first. The chicken before the egg, or the egg before the chicken. So let's see what it gives us. It'll be interesting to see. The Saga of Skaldcleave. I already like it. The name Skaldcleave sounds good. It's kind of got a Viking-esque kind of sound. So backstory and lore. In the deep, echoing halls of the ancient dwarven kingdom of Karagnum, nestled beneath the towering peaks of the spine of the world, a master blacksmith known only as Thrain forged a unique hand axe. He named it Skaldcleave, drawing inspiration from the dwarven word for storyteller or bard, a title typically reserved for those who weave tales and songs. Thrain, however, believed that every strike of his axe could carve a story as enduring as any saga sung by the fireside. So I already like it. That's really cool. The metal for Skaldcleave was sourced from a rare meteorite, giving it an otherworldly sheen and an unparalleled sharpness. In its creation, Thrain incorporated runes of power and mystery, imbuing Skaldcleave with a faint sentience. It was designed not only as a weapon, but as a keeper of stories, absorbing the essence of its deeds and the tales of those it encounters. So that's really cool. It has, a little bit of meat behind it. Skaldcleave first belonged to a legendary dwarven hero, Borin Stonefist. In Borin's hands, the axe tasted countless victories and was instrumental in the defense of Karagnum against a horde of invading orcs. With each battle, the axe legend grew, as did its sentience. It became more than just a tool of war. It became a companion and a chronicler of Borin's life. So after Borin's passing, Skaldcleave was lost for centuries, buried within its master in a hidden tomb. It resurfaced in the hands of various warriors throughout history, each adding to its legacy and power. The axe's sentience grew with time, allowing it to guide and advise its wielders, often urging them towards acts of valor and greatness. Let's see. Current state. Presently, Skaldcleave lies dormant, waiting for a worthy wielder. It has been hidden away in the ruins of an ancient dwarven stronghold, now overrun by goblins and other foul creatures. Its purpose has waned slightly, but it yearns to be wielded in battle once more, to carve new stories and to regain its former glory. So, this is what it will do if you want it to unlock. So, I don't know if I want this kind of scale. I kind of only want it, so I didn't specify. So I'm going to have to back that part up. But at level 6, Whispers of the Past, once per day, the wielder can cast Comprehend Languages, as Skaldcleave imparts the knowledge from its vast history. So it probably, it gives you that ability in case you're speaking to orcs and goblins and other clans and such. There's a Rune of Resonance. The axe will vibrate with the magical frequency, granting the wielder an extra attack return. That's pretty powerful, but that's at level 12. Level 18, Saga Strength. Once per week, the wielder can invoke the spirits of past heroes for a burst of strength, adding a significant bonus to attack and damage rolls for a short duration, so maybe a +2. Echoes of Karagdum, the axe unleashes a powerful sonic wave, dealing area effective damage and stunning enemies. And then at level 30, Legacy and Bound, Skaldcleave reaches the peak of its power, allowing the wielder to summon a spectral dwarven warrior for aid in battle. So I don't mind that, but I think it's a little bit much. I only wanted 4 tiers, and I think that I'm going to be defining it a little bit more. But the Sentience possesses a personality befitting a seasoned warrior and a sage. It values bravery, storytelling, and the preservation of history. It communicates through emotions and occasionally whispers that only its wielder can hear, especially during moments of great import or decision, like battles and such. Its ultimate desire is to be part of stories that will be told for ages to come. So that's a pretty good start. I mean, I'm pretty impressed. That's not bad. I mean, I've seen worse. And there are lots of magic items that fly out and around there that don't make sense, or they don't fit the setting, or there's no backstory to it. You kind of have to make that up on the fly. So I want to make something up for this to kind of have it in place ahead of time. And something like this could be the reward for a quest. I kind of like items that have a meaning and that they're earned and not just given. I don't know how many times I've seen in games where we just swap out a +1 sword for a +2 sword. I mean, there's no story in that other than just upgrading your weapon, with no story at all. Just swapping them out for more damage and hit accuracy. So I mean, that's okay occasionally. Maybe a dagger or something like that. You swap for a regular to a +1 dagger. I mean, that's probably not a big deal, other than you can describe that the dagger is a lot more made a lot more professionally, made out of better, superior quality and stuff, and maybe it's blessed or cursed. Something like that is okay. But when you start getting into just handing someone a +2 weapon and then not giving any sort of story or any quest behind it or anything, it's kind of boring. But I'm going to change this leveling up part because I did not specify how I wanted to tier it, so that was on me. So in the beginning, I should have said, hey, see, it says to level up every 6 levels, but I didn't give it a cap. So it went all the way up to level 30, which I don't think is necessary. So I'm just going to say, I'll say, please limit and combine to only 3 tiers. And then what I'll say is any special abilities or powers gained, it will combine as required. So if there's more than one thing, that's fine. I'll say please organize. I'll say reorganize with balance. With balance and a sense of purpose, because I don't like it when they just add crap on there for no reason. Okay, so please limit and combine to only 3 tiers. So what I'll say is for the leveling up section, comma, I'll say please limit and combine to only 3 total tiers. Because I mean, level 30 is kind of ridiculous. I wouldn't go past level 20 in most cases. All right, so let's do it. So it doesn't have the sense of scale, so you have to make sure you give it that. Otherwise, it's going to run amok and just do whatever. All right, so at level 6, you get the runic echoes, and you get a +1 to attack and damage rolls, reflecting its growing attunement. So I like that. You're not starting off with +1. You have to earn it. So at level 6, you get that. At level 2, you get the Echoes of Valor, and you get a +2 enchantment. Tier 3, Legacy Unleashed, the Thunder of Karak Doom, you get that big blast. Once per week, the wielder can unleash a powerful thunderous wave, dealing 2d8 thunder damage to all in a 15-foot radius and potentially stunning them. Power enhancement. The bonus to attack increases to +3. The axe now fully embodies the spirit of a warrior and a sage, offering strategic advice in combat and occasionally revealing hidden lore or stories of the past. So it's pretty cool. So that sentience is kind of neat. I like the idea of it. So that's just the tip of the iceberg there. You can really go, kind of buck wild on it. So let's create the basic of it. So let's, I'm going to say create the basic item stat block. I'll say for tier 1. I'll say for each tier. Including the base item stat block. So I want to say create the basic, I'll say DnD5e item stat block. I'll say just say create the basic, or create the DnD5e item stat block for each tier, including the base item stat block. Make 4 variations. So I think that's how I'm going to handle this in Fantasy Grounds. So to make it more convenient for the GM, just swapping out a weapon and a couple, powers, or adding a couple powers to your actions tab is much easier than trying to edit the item each time it levels up. I think it's more convenient, in other words. So you can just swap it out instead of trying to edit every time. So you probably won't get past the first 2 tiers because that's level 6 and level 12. So I don't imagine that most people will play to level 18, but if they do, you'll have a pretty badass weapon. All right, so let's go ahead and see what it gives us. So I asked it for a stat block, not just a list of things. We'll see what it does. Okay, so it's given me sentience. Okay, so there's the base items. Okay, so it's doing all that. All the base items +1. Nice. So it's giving me the tier adjustments for each item, and then it gave me the base, which is this. It's sentient, versatile. Huh, interesting. So it's a hand axe that you can use single or one-handed, I guess. 1d6 slashing, 1d8 when used two-handed. Light thrown, so you can throw it. And what I don't see is, does it require attunement? So we need to put that on there. So this requires attunement. So let's do that. This item requires attunement. So they have to be attuned to it. There's something this powerful. You have to ask for attunement, I think. Okay. So when you make this item, you'll have to put that in the weapon so that it works in Fantasy Grounds. Okay, so once it's done here, I'm going to take this text and drop it into Fantasy Grounds so I don't have to keep coming back here. But I do want to create an item before, or like a picture of it, I guess. Okay, so what I'm going to say is create an image for the item above using the context of our conversation prior. Then I'm going to ask it to, I'm going to use expert and detailed Dungeons and Dragons artwork. And I kind of want it to look kind of like oil painting, but also 3D. Okay, Sven, how you doing? Expert and detail, okay. And then I'm going to say, let's see, oil painting. I will say I'll say epic and professionally let's see, epic and professionally designed digital oil painting style art. So I want that kind of that, role-playing game book feel. But I also want kind of a 3D thing. So 3D animation, Octane render, art style. So I want it to combine the items so it looks both not just what do you call it? Not just flat. I kind of want it to have kind of a more kind of a realistic look to it, but I do want that artsy kind of fuzziness that you get with oil painting. And then I'll just say 1:1 square aspect ratio. So I don't want it long or tall if possible. And I think that's it. So create an image for the item above using the context of our, I'll say, previous conversations. Get rid of that prior. That's stupid. Okay. And then expert and detailed Dungeons and Dragons artwork. Maybe I'll say weapon. No, I don't need to say weapon. It'll pull that from here. And then go ahead and send that, see what happens. So hopefully it comes up with something kind of cool. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's usually decent. Every once in a while, you get some weirdness that you'll have to ask it to redo. It's a lot better than it used to be. It couldn't do weapons before. If you've used AI, it really sucked for that. Okay, so that's not bad. It's a little bit over the top, but no, on a rainy Sunday, I think that would work. It says, here's the artwork of the magical hand axe Skaldcleave as described. The image captures the epic and mystical essence of this unique weapon in the Dungeons & Dragons setting. So that's not bad. I can live with that. That's actually really freaking cool. So I'm going to download that just in case. And then if I wanted to kind of do more with it, I can put it in Canva. I'll do something with it here. So I'll create a design, I'll do a square post type thing. And then what I'll do is I will copy this image and then I'll bring it over here and paste it. And then kind of square it up a little bit. And then we'll see if it will cut the background out. So edit photo, background removal. See if it can handle it. Oh yeah, so this could be used in other applications, so I don't have to always have it with that background. So that's not bad. It did a pretty good job cutting out the background. So what I would do with something like this is I can resize this at this point. So this is at 1080 by 1080, which isn't too bad, but I'll go ahead and share that and then I will download it. But before I do, I want transparent background. That way I don't have all this white back here. And then go ahead and hit download. So you might use this for an item description or use it in a different, different photo. And that's why I did that. So we have this. This was we'll say, this was Skaldcleave or something like Skaldcleave. I like that it has a name. I just really get kind of turned off if the item is just a +1 axe. Well, yeah, but how did it get that way? Let's see. So Skaldcleave. Yep. So cool. All right, I like it. Skaldcleave is what it's called, but I'm going to call it Skaldcleave. Okay, so that's a really cool item. So let's see what we're going to get here. So what we can do, if you have an image like that, is you can upload it to Chat GPT and you can ask it to, essentially to give you a description. It will not make a copy because it's going to protect people's art. It's not going to give you the, let's see, where's the images, pictures? No. Desktop. Nope. Let's go to new volume, downloads. Let's see if it brought that in. I'd just like to know where it went. Okay, so there it is. Okay, there's this one. Okay, here's both of them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is open these up in ChatGPT, and I'm just going to, just for experimental sake, I'm going to say, please provide a detailed description of each attached photo. And I will say axe because that way it has, I'll say, please provide a detailed description of each, I'll just say each attached photo. We'll see what it can do. So if you have images already and you kind of want something that looks like that image, you can ask ChatGPT to analyze the image first, and then you can actually make a prompt out of it. It won't copy verbatim, like it's not going to make a duplicate. Oh, it even knows Skaldcleave because of the context of the information. So the first image features a magical hand axe with a double-sided blade, each side adorned with intricate dwarven runes and symbols that glow with an ethereal light. The handle is wrapped in what appears to be a leather grip, culminating into a geometric pommel that suggests dwarven craftsmanship. So that's kind of neat. The second image showcases the same magical hand axe, Skaldcleave, now in a mystical environment that enhances its arcane presence. So this also helps you come up with the type of wording that you want to use for your items. So pretty neat. So we have a transparency version, and we have like a colored picture of it. So this would be useful in Fantasy Grounds if you're going to make an item. You want it to be in your book or in your content. So I'm going to go to the actual file explorer, and I'm going to go to the downloads folder. In this case, I have a unique one, a storage drive. It's downloads. Oops, didn't want that. I want this one. And I'm going to make a new folder called Skaldcleave. So new folder. And it's going to be called Skaldcleave. And I'm going to put those pictures in there. And then what I'm going to do is all that lore that we captured, I'm going to have it combine all that stuff, and then I'm going to copy and paste that into Fantasy Grounds and into a text file. So I want to go ahead and say, please combine, reorganize, and build a detailed reference sheet for Skaldcleave, including the story and history. I need to add that to my Skaldcleave history. Reorganize and build. So I'm basically summarizing this in a sense. That way it will actually give me some good like formatting and output and everything. All right, so it's starting to build all that good stuff. Okay. It's dormant. It's within the ruins. So this is like a story starter kind of thing. You could use this totally in like an adventure and use it to inspire you to build an entire one shot around it or something. Really cool. I think it, doing this kind of stuff really helps you get you in the mood and thinking about the setting and how you want to build it, or the item. At least you can plug this into, a lot of different situations. But I like that it kind of just came up with a lot of this on its own, and I just kind of guided it with what I wanted out of it. So it's really neat. I mean, I obviously gave it some context, which is important, but it's not everything. Let's see, copy that. So what I'm going to do is in Fantasy Grounds, I have a note here, nothing permanent, but I'm going to use this to stage up the text. So I have a place to put it until I'm ready to enter it into an item. And then I'm going to right click, go to clean up text, so it gets rid of all the extra stuff. And then I could do is start some of the formatting. So I'm going to go ahead and make that a, Control Z. So if you learn the text formatting in Fantasy Grounds, like the Control key, Control 1 is regular text, Control 2 is this kind of bold red, and then for regular text or standard stuff, Control B for bold. So I'm just going to bold these things here, and then I'm going to go back to Control 2, and then here's the base abilities. There we go. So this is just a way to kind of organize your information. And if I copy and paste all this into a different area in Fantasy Grounds, it'll keep that formatting, which is nice, because before, about a year ago, you couldn't do that. You had to reformat even if you copied and pasted between different records in Fantasy Grounds. Now this actually retains your formatting, which is a godsend if you're somebody who does conversions work, because that's a pain in the ass to have to go through that and fix that. All right, so there we go. It looks pretty good. Looks fairly professional. And then what I'll do is those images that are in on my hard drive here, I'll make a document in WordPad++. So I'll do like a file new. And what I want to do is make sure that I capture this and have it stored somewhere. So in case I have a problem or some kind of error or issue, I'll have it backed up somewhere. So this would be helpful if you're working on a commercial product. So that's all of this, information here. So you have this double spacing, and this is something you'll get when you are copying and pasting from a website or from a PDF. So if you want to remove the spacing, you can do that. So if you, let's see, if you go to, is it edit? No, Control F, I believe, or it's a search. Yeah, I think it's find, Control F. Okay, so with Control F, using this application, you can just put a space and then replace. So you're going to replace a space, or a double space actually, with nothing. So we'll see if that, yeah. So you can have it delete spaces essentially. So if you wanted to clean this up and get rid of all these, the spacing, you could do that. So what we'll do is we'll find a space and find what. Here's a filter, so you might, have a delete, whatever you want to do. But that's one way you can clean this up. I'll leave it as it is because there's some other spaces I do want to keep. But you can essentially take and cut out spaces and such in here. You can do the Control J. So if I hit Control J, that'll strip out all of the spacing and stuff. But I don't want that right now. But you can do that in Fantasy Grounds too. But they kind of made that functionality a little easier. All right, so that's that. Now I want to go back to the images where I was at before I got sidetracked. And I'm going to take and print off that text file. So I'm going to rename this tab. I don't know, I'm going to got tab 53. This is going to help me. So Skaldcleave is the name of the tab. So I can find that easier later. And then I'm going to hit File. We'll say Save As. And then a normal text file. And I'm going to navigate it to the folder, the Skaldcleave folder. So now I at least have just the basic text without formatting. So if I lose the information or I want to change something later, so it's all together basically in one area. And that's important if you're going to make like a gazetteer or some kind of world book. Anything you do, taking the extra time to label these things is important. So here, I don't want to leave this Dolly 3 label, so I'm going to say Skaldcleave Axe. And then in the front of it, I'm going to put art underscore and then Skaldcleave Axe. And then what this one will be is an asset. So asset underscore and then I'll say Skaldcleave Axe. So the reason I have it this way is so when I look at it in Fantasy Grounds, I can find it easier. Skaldcleave Axe. It does help a lot. Rename your files. It does help a ton, especially if you got a dozen of them. If it's one thing, who cares? But if you have like several things, this will definitely save you a lot of time and headache. So there's the two art pieces. Now these are PNG files. So this image here is 1.57 megabytes. And this transparency is about a half a megabyte. So that's not bad. But what I will do is I will take these and let's see, I'm going to open this in, let's see, we're going to go to GIMP because that's what I use for for minor editing and stuff. So I don't have Photoshop, but I use everything else. I do have Corel and some other stuff, so if I want something a little more professional, I can do that. But this works just fine. I don't need anything spectacular. So we'll do that, and what we're going to do is put these in here, and then I'm just going to hit File, Export As. You can do it like that. And I'm going to change the suffix here to Webp, and then click Export. And the Fantasy Grounds recommends 75%. That's only if you're doing a conversion. You can leave it however you want, but it's 75% image quality. And then hit Export on that. And then I'm going to also bring in the transparent version of it. See, now if you have like a spell, like what is that, a spiritual weapon or something, that it's nice to have the transparent version in case. So let's get that going. So again, come in here, You can do this in a batch format, but I kind of want to do this one at a time, take a look at it. So that looks pretty good as a single object without a background. So hit File, Export As. I'm going to change this back here to .webp, and then hit Export, and it's going to save the setting, so it's already at 75, so I don't have to redo that. And go ahead and do that. So that'll save it for the session, that is, unless you make like a, some sort of script. Okay, so here is the new version, and it is, wow, it's like it's 98 kilobytes, whereas before it was 1.57 megabytes. So that's quite a difference in size. So this is 57 and this one is 534. So that's the difference in the size of the files. So that's a pretty big difference. So when it's something like this, one item, who cares, right? It's just one thing. However, if you're going to build an entire catalog of items and all those sort of things, you have kind of a directive, especially if it's a commercial product for like Fantasy Grounds, you're going to want to consider reducing the size of your art pieces, especially like maps and tokens. All that stuff adds up. The developer's guide kind of says, let's keep it under 100 megabytes. And the only way you're going to achieve that is by reducing the size. So now that they can support WebP, it's a lot smaller. Now, I'm not saying that, PNGs can't be reduced in quality and stuff, but I think there's a trade-off here between size and quality, so I think they prefer that it be like this. And then for dimensions, this might be a little big because it's 1024 by 1024, so I might have to change that to like 1000 by 1000 or something. But this is my gig here, so I don't have to worry about this for dimensions. But they do have some call-outs for that. So I'm just going to copy these, and I'm going to go to the Assets folder, and on the bottom here is a thing called Folder. So I want to click on Images and then Folder. And what you're going to get here is the back end of your campaign. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in here. These are Webp files. And by the way, if you have Windows 11 and you don't already have an application installed that can open these up, you won't be able to see the thumbnail. So I found a repository type thing online, a GitHub, where a guy has developed an extension that will install into your Windows shell, and essentially it will add the ability to click on the assets and show. So if I go to View and then Large Icon, see, it will show it. So if you need that preview, you can add an extension. I don't remember where I found it, but I was wondering why I couldn't see the assets in just like I normally would. And that's because it's not native. It's not built in natively, so that's what I did there. Anyways, just a little pro tip there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh. And once I do, it makes a folder called campaign. You open that up, there you go. So there's the images. So what I would do with that, had this been a, an actual entry for the weapon or something, I'd link that to this here. So let me see, does it let me do that? Yeah, so notes can't have links in it, but essentially this is where that would go once I make the item stat block. And then you could preview these. So instead of using my, what is this, the Fantasy Grounds Academy background, now I can use this as my background. So it looks pretty cool. So this whole campaign is centered around this axe. So you start building from here. Then I might build like the dungeon and where it's stored, and then all of its creatures and that kind of stuff. So you can do that. But this is just the basics here. And I might put this in a story entry so that there's some lore attached to the weapon. Instead of putting all this in the item description, I can just put a link to a story entry. So when you open it up, it gives you more text. This might be a little busy for an item. We'll have to see. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to a battle axe and take a look at the properties of a regular battle axe. And then we're going to start converting that over into Fantasy Grounds. And remember, we're going to make 3 versions. So there's going to be a base, well, actually 4. So it's going to be a base version, and then there's going to be the other 3 tiers at 6, I don't remember, 12, and 18. So what we're going to do is go into the items. And first I want to make my own custom group. So whenever you make data in Fantasy Grounds, if you want to export it later, or if you think you're going to use it in other campaigns, you get in the habit of making your own groups depending on the data type. So in this case, this is an item. So I'm going to click this little arrow here. This is a drop-down menu. And I want to click this green plus button to add a new category, which is a group. So I'm going to click that. And it'll say group 1, which is your standard kind of basic default. And click the edit button, this little line here, and go ahead and rename this. So what I'm going to call this is, I'm going to just name it after, I'm going to say quest, I'm going to call this whole thing Quest for Skaldcleave or something like that. Nah, I don't want to do that. That's too specific. So maybe, I don't know. I spend more time on trying to figure out what I want to call this thing, because it's going to kind of go through, you know what, I'm just going to call it, yeah, I'll just call it Skaldcleave for now, because that's basically what this is going to be around. So it's in a unique folder now. Instead of being a part of all the different items, now it has its own kind of filter. So what I want to do though is click back on all, and I want to look for a battle axe. So I'll do a search down here, because it's essentially what this thing is. So it's a battle axe. So open this up. Yeah, so 1d8 slashing. This is versatile, but the thing that we're using is a little bit less. It's not a battle axe per se. It's more of a hand axe. So what we're gonna do is make a copy of this, because what you'll find a lot of times is in rule books, these things are locked. So in order to get around that, you just make a copy by dragging this little link and dropping it back into this list here. And now I have a copy that's not attached to anything. I'm going to open this up and unlock it, and then you can see the properties of this. So this is going to be my starting point. I'm going to make some changes to it, but I'm going to go ahead and make this my starting point, which is going to be the base of the axe itself. So then once I do that though, I want to drop the list down, and I'm going to take this copy and drag and drop it into the Skaldcleave section. So this is now my base. So I'm going to call this Skaldcleave comma hand axe, because that's essentially what it's supposed to be, and you can throw it. So that's the difference between the battle axe and this. So this is a hand axe. And then what I'm going to do is change some of these properties here. So I want to take a look at a hand axe too, because I want to steal some of that information. So this can also be added in with Chat GPT. If you give it the parameters, it'll help give you more. But it's already given me most of what I need. I am going to change the weight to 3 pounds instead of 4. And then the cost obviously is going to be probably astronomical. I'll just say for right now, 10,000 gold. So that's worth a lot of gold. It won't have any bonuses at the first level, so I don't have to change that. I'm going to say very rare, and in parentheses, requires attunement. So for Fantasy Grounds, you have to have that in there. Requires attunement. I'll have to look at another magic item, make sure I got that right. So what I want to do is look at a +1 hand axe. So I'm going to go to all. That's +1 battle axe. So I'll say hand axe. Oops. What is it called? Is it one word? Yeah, it's one word. So I'll change that up here. And then hand X plus 1, I'll make a copy of that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy some of this stuff. So this is going to make it kind of like a +1 hand axe, but it's going to have some magical properties. So this here, all this stuff, Control A, Control copy, and then I'm going to change the properties down here. And then I want to, that's the price range. So yeah, I was going to change it to £3. And there's no bonus yet, so weapon, simple. Okay, so simple melee weapon. Okay, and then 1d6 slashing. And then light thrown. Yeah, so that's cool. So that, and then this thing, I will change just for a placeholder. And non-ID name, refined hand axe under the non-ID name. And let's see, simple subtype. Yeah, I didn't want it there. I had that wrong. So simple melee weapon, Control A, Control copy, Control Victor. Okay, so this is really just the base. So at this point, it can still attack or damage a creature that requires magical weapons, but it doesn't have any magical bonus yet. And then you can also unidentify it. So when it goes into someone's inventory, until they become attuned to it, you know, it may or may not be something that, you know, is required depending on what it is. So let me look at something that's more, let's see, go to all. Let's go to a cloak. Let's see what that looks like. Cloak of Arachnidia. Yeah, requires attunement is under, and it needs to be capital. So that's what I was looking for. So capital R, capital A. Requires, and then capital A for attunement. Okay. All right, so that's just the real basics right there. Now I'm going to go back to Skaldcleave here and get rid of this search term. Now that's the basis of it. So I'm going to make probably 4 different variations. So this is tier 1. So in order to differentiate that, I'll just say T1 here. That way I know that this is the lower level one, and then go from there. So this is just the basics. Now I want to add that information. So I could put all that in here in the description, but it says I want to take this out because that was just a placeholder. And I'm going to take the lore now and put that in here, but only the base lore. I don't want to put all the other powers in there yet. So I want to take a look at the staging area that I set up for the text. So this I can put in there. So this has the, let's see, and I'm going to put sentient under the properties. Sentient. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is take this and put all of this base abilities in the description. So I want to unlock this and take all this stuff up here and paste it in. And that's all it needs right now. So there isn't nothing else, no codes or anything like that. So that's a real basic thing right there. So it is magic, but it doesn't confer any bonuses or anything. And it just basically, it's just a really finely made blade that has a magic touch to it. So that's what it is when you first pick it up. And when they grab it, it's just going to say refined hand axe until they attune with it, which essentially kind of identifies it. And then you would unlock that if, when it comes time. So that is that. Okay, so this is the base. Now that I have the base, I can just build on that and not have to, do much else to it. So I'm going to go ahead and make another copy of the same weapon in the same group. But you see where it says copy? So that, I'm going to bring that up. And I'm going to change that to tier 2. Got to unlock it first. So T2. And then down here, I'm going to add the additional properties to this. So as I go, I can just make copies of each tier. So this is going to be the lore for all the way up to here. So I can hit Control A, Control V. So now it's grabbing everything, including the level 2 tier. And then it does get a +1 in this case. And what does it do? So it echoes the Valor damage rolls, an additional D6 for 1 minute. So that's going to have to be an effect. And then Mind of the Warrior communicate with Skaldcleave telepathically, which is kind of a role-playing thing. And then the sharpened, oh, that's level 1. Okay, this is for level 2. Okay, I forgot to do level 1, so I got kind of confused. All right, so this is tier 2 or 3. This is tier 3, actually. Okay, there we go. So the tiers I got mixed up. So levels and tiers. Okay, so this is a tier 3, even though it says tier 2 here, because tier 1, you know what? It's going to be really confusing. I'm going to say for the first one, tier 0, because that's really what it is. Okay, so tier 0. That way, it doesn't mess up my feng shui here. So I still got to do tier 1. Okay, so this one is actually a 2, +2. Bond of Blades, +1 bonus to attacks and damage rolls. Cast comprehend languages. So this is where you're going to have to link spells and all that, and we'll do that afterwards. So I got all that. Now I need to make the tier 1. So go ahead and do this tier 0 again. And then I'll open that up. And this will be tier 1. There we go. You can really get messed up really easy. And I'm going to get rid of the tier 2 notes down here because it's tier 1 at this point for level 6. So this is something the GM will have to manage somewhat, but it'd be much easier just to swap the blade out than, having to change all this information every time you level up. So you're kind of doing all that work ahead of time. So this one is +1. Okay. There we go. Much better. And now let's take a look at the next tier. So I'll unlock that. I'll just leave it unlocked because I got stuff to do to it later. So the tier 3, I'm going to make another copy, unlock this, and change this to tier 3. So T3. And then change this to 3. And I'm going to get rid of all this stuff and go with copying this whole thing here. So I should probably leave that personality there. and add that to the others. So Control copy, Control V. Yeah, so that lists everything now, but I forgot about this personality thing, so I'm going to Control copy and add that to the rest of these stat blocks here. Oops. Okay, so all the tiers, at least for the first three, or the third. Yeah, it looks better. Okay, so let's see what it says. Yeah, so I'm going to add that to the first one. Okay, so that is basically all the different tiers for the weapon. So that's all one weapon. And it's probably good that I put it under Skaldcleave instead of just a one entry. And this way your GM can just swap it out and not have to mess around too much. Okay, so that is that. So are they all 3 pounds? Yep. Okay. So we kind of base those off of one another. So that's good. Okay, so now that we have that, now I got to go through and build the powers for this item, if there are any. So the best way to do this is to go into the spells area and create a new group. So I'm going to call this the new group. I'm going to edit it. This is going to be the Skaldcleave again, because this all goes with the weapon. Skaldcleave. You go ahead and edit, edit, and click Skaldcleave. Now here, this is where all the powers are going to go, if any. So any effects automation will go here. So what I want to do is go ahead and, let's see, I want to get a character sheet going, because this is where you build the effects. Now it doesn't matter what character it is, just so you have a starting point. So just a blank character sheet. I'm going to go to the Actions tab, and if I need to make any codes or anything like that, I can. So what I'm going to do is make a new power group, and I'm going to call it Skaldcleave. And then all the powers that belong to it, will be built here if there's any. Now what I want to do is take the text from here, copy and paste, and then what I'm going to do is, just for the sake of completeness, I wanted to show you another thing. So there is a thing that I made. This is a 5e effects builder. So if you need any automation, so what I'm going to say is create effects automation based on the text from the context of the story or the item, say magic item context. Okay, so that is minus, yeah, we could do that. We could just say, yeah, I'll just have it do build the context below. So what I'm asking it to do is to take the text that I'm, basically going to use for this item and see if it'll build any of the context for me. So I'm getting really lazy now. So copy all this stuff. So Control A, Control copy, and then go back in here. Okay, so this is all the coding for this. So let's see what it comes up with. So I'm asking it to build any of the, the context for this item. And I'm going to try to build them separate because I don't want all of it in one thing. I want to drag them over as the powers are added. I wasn't able to find any specific information on. Okay, but I can create auto. Okay, no problem. So there's your effect code if you're going to do anything. So that might be handy in creating, whatever type of codes you want. Yeah. So it does create the effects for it, but it's probably unnecessary. So like this effect code might work. All right. So these are all the different powers, essentially. So I'm going to take all this and drag and drop in the text context. So if I come over to Fantasy Grounds and hit enter, okay, so got rid of that. Let's do this. So Control-2, Control-B, and then anything that, is basically, let's see, effect name. Echoes of Valor, Mind of the Warrior, Sharpened Edge, there's the Thunder ability, there is Legacy's Edge, and then Wisdom of the Ages, and here's the notes. So it's not bad. I mean, it does a lot of it for you. I mean, some of it may not be right, but it's going to get you close. Yeah, this is super helpful. Okay. So essentially, what we have here is all of the effects, if any, to be applied to this particular weapon. And what we'll do is we'll make like we'll put all the abilities on this character sheet, and then we'll drag them over to the spells area. That way it's all ready to go. So if you need any of the automation, it's there. Some GMs won't use it, but some might. I think most would. But there are cases where you may not need it. Like the bonuses on damage, you could build that into the weapon. But we'll see. So what I might do is just have a base, and then whatever powers you need, you just drag those over. We'll see. So that and that. Okay, so these are just the kind of an idea of where to go for your effects automation. And the reason why that was able to do that is because this particular Chat GPT, when I went in to build this, I told it to give it some, descriptions. I don't know why I'm not seeing the effects wiki here. Maybe I put it in the description, yeah. So these are all the formattings and the SRD. So these are all the text strings for weapons and powers and NPCs and for effects automation for this rule set. And a lot of this just points to the effects wiki, or there might be some text in here. But it's nothing special. All this stuff is on the forums or on the wiki guide. So nothing, no magic here. Just stuff that you just got to put it in a text format and feed it to the effects builder. But essentially, that's kind of what makes it easier on you in the long run. So what I'm going to do now is take these, build all these out if there is anything. So like this first part, nothing. The second part, Bond of the Blade, we could probably do what it says here. We can make this an effect, or we can just allow the weapon itself to be the effect, because none of this stuff here has to do anything with, you could use that, I guess, if you didn't have the weapon, but in this case we do, and it has the weight and everything, so we don't even have to do anything with this particular tier. Now the runic echoes, we probably will. So let's see. Cast once per day languages. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to make this a note. It's not going to do anything spectacular. Okay, you get it once per day. Instantaneous. Okay, bond to the blade. Okay, so what we're going to do is, whoops, that goes to that. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is first up here, we have a group set up. So what we're going to call this is runic echoes. So we made a group, and now we're titling the actual effect. And I'm going to right click, go to add action, and in this case, an effect. So this effect is accessed through this little magnifying glass. Really hard to see, but it's over here. It looks like a tennis racket. But for targets, it's going to be, let's see, self. Does it expend? So let's look at that. Continuous once per day. So not really, so we'll leave that there. But you could just say once per action, next roll, once per modifier, or never. So when we cast this, we want it to expire at some point. So this would be per rest kind of thing. So we'll have to put that in here as a note. But so we're going to call this is runic echoes. And then we'll change this to day, even though that doesn't really help much with the combat tracker, but it expires in 1 day. So runic, I put renic. I need to rune ek. Runic echoes. And then whenever you have your title, you're going to put a semicolon after it because that tells Fantasy Grounds to ignore that. And we're just going to give it a note. So we're going to say cast this per day type thing. That way, it's just a note. So when it goes on to the player, it just lets the GM know that player has that ability, or that has that active. And then what we'll do is we're going to make a copy of the spell. So in this case, it's comprehend languages. So what we're going to do here is go to spells and go to all. And I'm going to look for comprehend languages. Okay, so we're going to make a copy of this. And this is an SRD spell, so it's nothing too crazy. And then I'll take that and drag this over to the Skaldcleave. So this is one of the effects that is going to be a part of this. So this would go on the sheet here for this particular item. So that's the effect, and here's the note. So the effect is just going to be a spell. It's really nothing to it. So pretty much all notes at this point. But you'll have access to the description on how the spell works. This is duration 1 hour. So that cancels that out. So what we can do in there is change this to casting time it says instantaneous. So we might have to change that. But for 1 hour, we might put 1 day. Something like that. We don't have to change that, but this is just something. And then for casting time, it said instantaneous, I think. Yeah, instantaneous for duration. Oh. Once per day. We'll say duration, instantaneous. So we're modifying the spell a little bit, not much. And that's why I made a unique group and then dragged that over to here. So it's not changing anything other than some of the duration stuff. But other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. So then again, you would just keep building the effects. So the next thing is bond of the blade. So what we could do here is we have to make a choice. Do we want to add the effect when the item is equipped, or do we just want to make an effect? So we could just leave it as a base and then add the effects as required. That way we don't have to have 50 gazillion versions of it. But I kind of like to have all this stuff built out in its separate areas, and then we can also decide if you just want to keep the one weapon and just drag over the. So let's do it that way. This is kind of a lot more work, but I think it's a lot cleaner and you can handle it in different ways. So this effect here is called Bond of the Blade. So we'll go ahead and click for a new power, and we're going to call this Bond of the Blade. And then I'm going to right click, go to Add Action, go to Add Effect, and what we're going to do is put in that coding there, that string of actions. So Bond of the Blade, semicolon, targets on self, duration continuous while equipped, so we don't have to worry about this. The effect code of itself is ATK +1 and damage +1. So this would be applied when you equip the item. You just have to remember to do it. However, this can also be built into the weapon. So it kind of depends on how you want to approach it. So like damage and that sort of thing can be built into the weapon. So you don't have to necessarily do it this way, but I'm going to make it just in case. So bond, I got bombed. So it needs to be bond of the blade. ATK +1, damage +1. Okay, so that's that ability there. So once I'm done building all these different things, I'm going to drag those into the spell area. So for instance, right now I only have comprehend languages, but I'll drag these over into this section. And then here's the runic echo. So that's how you keep all the powers together. So later when you want to export this, you'll be able to export this. This will all be part of that blade, essentially. So Echoes of Valor. So let's do this. So again, I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus button, and we'll do this Echoes of Valor. And then right click, go to Add Action, Effect, and then we're going to edit that. So it's going to be on self, and this is the actual code or the syntax. So Control Copy, Control V is in Victor. I want to call this was Echoes of Valor with a semicolon. And you don't really have to do all this. This is just to show the capabilities of Chat GPT and Fantasy Grounds. You guys don't have to do all this extra crap. This is a lot of extra work, but you can use this once on a long rest. So that would be one day. Oh, I don't need to do that actually. So this will expire after a long rest. So we'll set this thing here in the properties of Fantasy Grounds, so we don't need to include that. Okay, so there's that. Echoes, advantage on melee attacks, and then damage of additional 1d6. So that's pretty cool. It's on self, so we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and, so Echoes of Valor, if you go to preparation and let's see, So Echoes of Valor, you would put a 1 there for daily. That's how that works. Echoes of Valor. Huh. So these are just the, the actions that are involved. As you level up, you drag these onto your character sheet into a section called Skaldcleave, and then that way, when you are leveling up and you get a higher tier, you can either drag the item over or you can drag the effects over. So it's going to give you that option to do both. So it really depends on your familiarity with Fantasy Grounds and your player's comfort level and that sort of thing. So let's see, Echoes of Valor. Here's Mind of the Warrior. So is there a telepathy? Let's take a look. I don't remember. Because I want the kind of the meat of it. I don't need the... Yeah, it's really no thing, so that'll just be a note. Okay, no big deal. All right, so again, I'm going to add a new thing here. This is called Mind of the Warrior. So I'm going to put that there. And then back this up. Right click on it. Go to Add Action. This is basically going to be a note. Add an effect. So it's really almost not required, but we're just going to call this... let's see. So there's Mind of the Warrior. Oops. It's on self. Telepathy. Okay, that's all we need to do because, oh, it says Skaldcleave. So they'll know, the DM will know what's going on when you put that on. It's just a reminder. That's all it is. Doesn't do anything. All right, so this can come over here. And this, oh wait, it's already there. What am I missing here? So Bond of the Blade, Comprehend Languages, Echoes of Valor, Echios, so we need to fix that. There we go. Echoes of Valor. That's what needs to go over there. So Echoes of Valor. There we go. Mind of the Warrior is there, and Runic Echoes. So these are just all the different potential abilities. So Sharpened Edge. Okay, so this is going to be another one. So again, plus here. We're going to call this, what was that called? Sharpened Edge. And then right click, add action, or adding the effect, or the effect line. And then opening up, and this will be self on targets. And this is continuously going, so we don't have to worry about that. So we want to call it Sharpened Edge. And you'll have to test these out because once in a while it will give you the wrong syntax, but 9 times out of 10 it's right. Let's see, so these don't stack, so if you were to have another effect that gives you similar type things, you want to remove that. That's up to the DM to enforce that, but you don't have stacking effects like that for damage and such. So at this tier, you wouldn't have like 3 or 4 different things that give you pluses. You only get one of those, so I might put that in the instructions. But anyway, so this is for the Sharpened Edge effect. And again, that's another power that you unlock as this thing levels up. And it's manual, but at least you have this stuff. So now we got Thunder of Karagdum. So we don't want to use this accent mark in Fantasy Grounds, so I'm going to just change that because it doesn't like accent marks. For some reason, Fantasy Grounds won't accept those. And let's do, so this is once per week. Okay, so that's going to have to be a note, I guess. So what we'll do is click this, and that'll be a manual thing. There's no way to track it here. So, we'll have to, I don't know, we'll set some kind of expiration on it maybe. So let's go to add action, and I'm going to add that effect line. So this is Thunder of Karak Dum, was the, and I think I'm going to get rid of that hyphen too, because I don't want to take a risk of it not reading. I think they can take hyphens and underscores, but I don't even want to go there. If you work with Fantasy Grounds and you notice any weird punctuation or accents or something, you got to get rid of it. It's just not, it's going to cause issues. Let's see, so we want to go to edit this, and this is the actual code thing, or the syntax, so put that in there. This gives you your thunder damage, and this is once per week, but I guess we're going to put day, and then we'll put 7 days duration. Let's see, so once per week, range 15 feet, thunder, okay. And then we want to put the title, thunder, oops, control V, oops, control Z. We want this, Thunder of Karak Dum. And then semicolon. The heck? Okay, there we go. All right, so that's that. And then when you're done, you just drag this over to the spell effects. The reason we're doing that is so you have a place to store it. And then when you go to use these, they'll all be there for your players or whoever is building the character. Okay, so next ability is Legacy's Edge. So this is another kind of martial thing. So Legacy's Edge. And then what we'll do is we're going to right click, add action. I hate how it puts that extra space in there. It drives me nuts. So this will be self for targets. And then we'll put the code in there, which is attack +3, damage +3, pretty powerful. And it's continuous, so we don't have to worry about that. You don't change anything else other than self, and that should be that. So this is Legacy's Edge. So that goes over here. And the last one, Wisdom of the Ages, Advice, Combat. Okay, so this will be a note, not too hard. So add item, Wisdom of Ages. So again, this isn't going to do anything mechanically. We're just going to put it on the character when they have that tier unlocked. And then we're going to go to add action and add the effect, and then edit this effect line. So Wisdom of the Ages with a semicolon afterwards, and then target is self. And then this is going to be a note. So it's going to be, even though these aren't actual codes, this is just going to let the GM know what it does, kind of. So for effects of the ages, which would be more role-playing oriented and less mechanical, the code represents a prompt for the GM to provide strategic advice or lore based on the situation. The damage type and bonuses should be adjusted according to the wielder's level and the specific tier of Skaldcleave they have unlocked. The effects are designed to be compatible with Fantasy Grounds effect coding syntax, allowing for seamless integration into the platform. So this is what it created. It's not bad. This is really quick. Like, not doesn't take as long. So effect of the runic echoes. Okay. So anyway, so that's Wisdom of the Ages. And that one's done, so we'll drag that over there. So this is kind of how you would set this up for any effects that you do. That way you have it in one spot. So when you go to, if you go to export it, all that will export together. And now what I'm going to do is edit the weapons themselves, and I'm going to drag these spells to the weapons. So that way, if you want to do it the other way and equip the weapon and already have the effects on the weapon, so the players can drag those effects onto their character sheet. So what they're going to do is embed those or put them into the functionality of the weapon itself. So if I go to items, here are the different versions of it at different tiers. So tier 0 is nothing. I don't have to change anything on here, but I am going to put a link to the image. So this is an asset. What I need to do is in the images area, I'm going to go ahead and add a new category, group 1, and edit it. And it's going to be called Skaldcleave. And get out of the edit mode, select there. And I'm just going to drag this picture over because the other one is an asset. This is not a actual image. Although, you know what? I can just put them in there anyways. So there's that, and there's that. So those are the two images, which are now part of the campaign. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to link the art to the actual item. So now when you share this with your players and they have it on their character sheet, they pop that up, they're going to get a picture of it. So that's kind of cool. So that's why we made the images earlier. And it kind of gives them an idea just for kind of like immersion. It's not necessary, but I think it's kind of good to have that. Okay, so that is going to be true of all of these. So I want to do the same thing. So I want to go at the end, and I want to do the same thing. So why did I close that? Okay, so the art goes here. And I'm going to do it for the next one. Same thing. The art is going to go right in the same spot. So every single one of these versions is going to have a picture embedded into the item stat block. And then for level 3, I'm going to do the same thing. So art is going to go underneath this title. And there we go. So there's the art. So you have the art, and then you got all this stuff listed here. And if there's any powers that are associated with this particular tier, I'm going to drag those in here. So you could take and remove the rest of the stuff so that it doesn't confuse the players, or you can include it all. Depends on how you want to do this, but I kind of like to have those available. But what happens though is at level 3, all of this stuff adds up, right? But it's going to create a big mess, like a whole bunch of entries. But it's not too bad, but just keep that in mind when you're doing this kind of stuff. Is like, you don't want someone to have to scroll 50 pages worth of stuff. You know, you got to kind of keep it kind of tame if you can. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up those spells, and I'm going to go through each one of these one at a time and drag over the pertinent information. So what I'm going to do is kind of show you something that'll help you in the long run. So for like this stuff here, I'm going to put them all here in one group. And then the images I'm already done with. But I want to take this and put that right here so I can see what I'm doing. And so when you're doing the linking at the end, it's kind of important to kind of organize this stuff. Go to this is images, I want items. So that's 3, here's 2. See, I don't want 50 gazillion windows open, and I want them organized. So we're going to size them all to the same size. And here's 0. See, this is over here in the middle. So whenever you open a new window in Fantasy Grounds, and if you haven't moved it, it's always going to be in the middle. So if you know that, now when I click on these shortcuts, it's going to bring up each one. Perfect. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to drag over the corresponding items. So for level 0 or tier 0, we don't do anything. Okay, there's nothing there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put a space there, and I'm going to do another space right here. So we do get Bond of the Blade and Comprehend Languages. So we're going to put those two links. I can either put it under or, next to it, but I want to have them separate kind of. And then we want Comprehend Languages. So there's those two. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit enter and do this. So Echo of Valor, Mind of the Warrior, Sharpened Edge. So Echo of Valor. Let's see. So Mind of the Warrior. And then the last one was Sharpened Edge. Did I make that? Thought I did. Uh-oh. Let's see, Sharpened Edge. I swear I did that. We'll see. Let's see. So go to the character that I had. Open that up. Yeah, so I just forgot to drag it over here. So Sharpened Edge. There we go. Disaster averted. So Sharpened Edge. And then for level 3, we want to put Legacy's Edge and Wisdom of the Ages. So Legacy's Edge and Wisdom of Ages. Okay, so that's the full Monty there for level 3. So you could go through each one of those weapons and do the same thing if you want. I want to see if it carries the links over, but I don't trust that. So anyways, level 3 is done. So then for this one, you'd only drag over up to level 2. You wouldn't add the level 3 stuff here. So you could repeat this process for each item and only drag over the the effects that would make sense for this level. So you do the same thing here. So tier 1 is runic echoes, whatever that's called. And then the next one is Bond of the Blade. And you just kind of work backwards with that. And then for level 2, it's the Sharpened, Echoes of Valor. And you get, why do they keep doing it? Echoes. Yeah, I have it spelt wrong up here. Echoes, so I want to be Echoes. Let's see. Probably wrong in my other ones, but at least I saw it. A little proofreading would help. Okay, so echoes. Okay, that's that. So then we have Mind of the Warrior. And then, what's the other one? Sharpened Edge. Okay. So number 2 is done, or tier 2. Now tier 1, we'd only bring over the tier 1 stuff. So that would be Runic Echoes. Whoops, I'll do that. Runic Echoes. And then the next one is Bond of the Blade. Okay, so if you do it this way though, and you drag these onto the character sheet, you're going to have to give them a base weapon that doesn't have anything, no bonuses on it. So you got to kind of think about this. Like if it already has a +1 here, you don't necessarily want that effect on there because it does +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls. So that's what this is for. So you might have to take those out depending on your familiarity with the game. But essentially, these are all of the tiers, the levels for those items. So now when you use it, it's all in one place. You're not looking for it, and it's duplicated, and you have that ability if you need it. So that's pretty much all I got. So I used Chat GPT to create the image. I used it to help me build the syntax for the magic, and then we made the backstory for this particular item. So not bad at all. And that was a good hour or so, a couple hours. So anyways, I think I'll let you guys go. Happy New Year. And hopefully that helps you a little bit. And like I said, these are custom Chat GPTs I made myself. You can share them publicly. I will share the 5e content creator. The other ones I've shared in our Discord. So if you're part of our Discord community, you can access some of these. And then this one is public though, so I can share that one. And then what I'll do is in the description at the end of the video, you'll have the links to this stuff. So take care, you guys. Have a good one. Happy New Year again, and